fatted frogs or kids with leukemia. Nuclear power ain't fit for a dog. The sun done give us all we need to make this country run. But that nuclear power's got us fussing and fighting, and I do believe it's time we was done. No nukes. Good morning, Toledo, and good afternoon, Columbus, and hello to those of you listening on the internet, wherever and whenever you are. My name is Joe DeMare, and I am here with my fantastic co-host,
Rebecca Wood.
And we are live in studio bringing you an episode of For a Green Future. For a Green Future is a show where we talk about ecology and the environment. And we talk about them in the ways that they affect you and your wealth and your health and your happiness, and the wealth and health and happiness of your neighbors and your out-of-town family and the people that you met, on when you were going to school, and pretty much everybody and everything, because we're all together on this wonderful, wrapped up in a bow on this wonderful planet we call Earth. And this show is all about protecting the Earth and the people who protect the Earth and what they go through. And today's show is dedicated to Carolyn Kawecka, who happened to be my wife of 37 years. Unfortunately...
Did that really just happen, Joe, or was it intentional?
Oh, the marriage?
Yes. I think it was on purpose. You're acting like it's just coincidence,
Well, she was definitely... it was intentional on her part.
Okay.
Definitely. We met at the University of Dayton when I was at the tender young age of 18, and she was this worldly woman of 22. And
oh, my goodness.
Pretty much decided she wanted me, and, I had no chance.
There we go.
Yeah, just... And not that I'm complaining, because, as I've learned over the decades, I was actually quite lucky to get a gal I could...
It seems to have kind of gone okay.
It went great, we had our moments, but... everybody does, but for the most part, it was a wonderful 41 years of courtship and 37 of actual marriage. So the reason I'm doing this, I'll back up a little bit. Some of you, over the past 2 years, I've kind of dropped mention here and there that a member in my household had cancer, and Carol really didn't want me to talk about it while that was going on. And so there was last year at this time we broadcast her 10 weeks from Boston, and we were out there actually for her treatment. And I wanted to share, now that she passed on December 1st, and that's why we had a recorded show last week. And I wanted to share with you folks her journey, because it was kind of a unique cancer journey, and we learned a lot, and we did a lot, and it was an amazing thing how she went through this. And I know so many people in my listening audience, so many people in the United States have lost someone to cancer or are battling cancer themselves. And I think that as an environmentalist, as an ecologist, we can't lose sight of the fact that cancer is this terrible thing, that a lot of it can be prevented. All we have to do is not put radioactive stuff in the air. All we have to do is not put these cancer-causing chemicals into the environment. We should have a world with no smokestacks and no discharge pipes. We should have a world where there's, these processes, these industrial processes, are completely self-contained, and don't put all this terrible stuff into the air that causes these terrible cancers. And many people, like Carolyn, fight cancer heroically, and you're going to find out just how heroic in a few minutes. But they shouldn't have to.
So the deal with Bowling Green is basically, which is where Joe lives, it's a highly agricultural area, former Great Black swamp. It's a glacial swamp, and was it every year? There's like at least a month when they tell you not to drink the water at all because of ag runoff, factory farms, pesticides, all that crap.
Not since we moved there about 11 years ago.
Okay, so there was in the 80s. I remember that because there were a lot of tasteless jokes about if you for unintended pregnancy, just drink the water. Yeah, and that they used to, especially like pregnant women and toddlers, were not supposed to drink it all year long. You were only supposed to have bottled water.
Yeah, well, and that
was the 80s before the factory farming got big.
And there are problems down there with the nitrates and so forth. But
yeah, that's not a good thing. You got the nuke plants, and up here in Dudley, we got the brown fields and the refinery. So it's isn't it a fairly high cancer area, like Northwest Ohio generally?
Near nuke plants, within 5 miles of nuke plants, you have double cancer rate, and near refineries, you have elevated cancer rates. And so yes, I mean, it just makes sense that if you're going to put things that cause cancer into the environment, people will get more cancer. But Carol's...
So not an accident, really not an accident, related to the environment.
Yeah. Well, Carol's cancer was what they call endometrial cancer, which means basically cancer of the uterus. And it was October of 2019.
The lining of the uterus.
Yes, the lining of the uterus. And it was October 2019 that we had that she had like first mild symptom, and she immediately went to the doctor like the next day. And it was within a week that we discovered it was cancer, and it was less than 10 days later she'd had the hysterectomy. And at that point, we thought that had done it, that she was in the clear because it was caught so early, and the doctor was saying, oh, it was a stage 1, and we got it all, and you're fine. And so we went along until March of 2020, and then Carol had developed a symptom called ascites. And ascites, it just means fluid on the abdomen, and it's a fluid produced by the cancer. And I discovered at this time, and I did not tell her this, but I found that once people develop ascites, the textbooks say that they have about 20 weeks to live, which would have meant that she would have died in September 2020. And so she went to try chemotherapy. Now, the problem with chemotherapy, with her cancer, the benefit rate is only 10%. Only 10% of the people who take chemotherapy for her cancer have any kind of improvement. But there was no cure rate at that time, and no other treatment. So she took one dose of chemotherapy, and she lost her hair, and she suffered all the other side effects. And this is now typical Carol, and what she said is that I'm not doing that again. And
yep.
Yeah, even though I wanted her to, because 10% chance is better than 0% chance, she just said, no, I'm not doing that again. And she said to me, find something else. Find me an alternative to this. And basically what she was saying is, Joe, find a cure for cancer. And now I have to preface this next part with, I am not giving anybody here advice on what to do. This is not medical advice. This is not any kind of scientific study or anything. This is just what happened to us. And what happened is we went to NIH website and journal articles, all peer-reviewed journal articles, and we dove really deep into cancer research, and we came up with a diet. And this diet combined high alkalinity, a highly alkaline diet, with low carbs, which meant no sugar and even no starches, no rice, no bread. And she started in on this diet, and one of the markers for cancer that she had is called a protein called CA125, and her levels were up in the 700s once she got diagnosed with the ascites, and normal is about 20. But she went on this diet, and amazingly, her CA125 levels started dropping. and they were dropping from 700, and they went down to 500 and 400. And so we went all through summer and fall of 2020, and the situation was that she was improving. She felt better and better. She was walking an hour a day. That was also part of our treatment, was this gentle exercise, because exercising muscle cells can actually outcompete cancer cells. But we realized that if you exercise too hard, that actually produces acidity, it produces lactase, and that helps the cancer. So she was doing gentle exercise and sticking to this diet strictly, and her CA-125 kept dropping, and she felt better and better. When she first developed the ascites, she felt like she was about to pass away, but she kept improving. And then we got to September, October, and the CA-125 levels stopped dropping. They leveled out around 200. They were going a little below, a little above. And we realized that we had found for her a treatment, but this was not a cure. And so then she said, "Joe, find me something else." What she said was, "Find me scrubbing bubbles." She said, "Get me something that will just wipe this cancer out." And so we looked at clinical trials, and we found a clinical trial at Mass General in Boston. And this clinical trial used genetically modified viruses to directly attack the cancer cells. It's a really radical treatment that, we hadn't heard anything like this before. And we learned that only 10% of people who have cancer agree to clinical trials. This kind of amazed us, because we thought everybody would do it. But Carol had that kind of bravery that just sort of, she just was that brave. She didn't, if she had to do something, she just went and did it. I mean, I remember one time we went to Oak Openings Park, and my son, who was 3 at the time, it was the winter time, and we got to the park, we got out of the car, and he just ran right down to the pond that is there in the parking, where the geese are, and he just plunged straight into the pond. I mean, literally, he just sprinted down and plunged into the pond. And we both ran down after him, and without hesitation, Carol and I both jumped in, but she kind of bumped me out deeper into the pond so she could grab Tony and just pull him up by a leg and toss him on the, she saved him. I mean, when something had to be done, she just did it. So that was great. So we get to Boston, and we almost don't get in the trial, because the principal investigator called us into his office and said, "Well, you say you only had 1 dose of chemotherapy, and had she gotten more, had she gone a full course of chemotherapy, she would not have been eligible for this trial." And he said, "Well, you say you only had 1 dose, but your CA-125 was dropping."
You're not sick enough.
Yeah. From,
You must have had more chemo.
From all the way from July to today. He said, "Well, how do you explain that?" And we said, "Oh, we explained the diet." And he was like, "Oh, okay." Scientists are like,
okay,
all right, we'll just, go ahead.
I saw a thing on the television years ago. Is about like Tibetan medicine or Chinese, I think Tibetan medicine in trying to cure cancer. And the first thing they tell you is don't have any alcohol or coffee. Because it's supposed to be, quote, substances that shock the body are bad.
Right.
Most of those things are also acidic, are they not? Like you're talking wine.
Yes, they are.
Yeah.
So you
might have invented the same cure of cancer as millions of years of Tibetans and Chinese.
We might have stumbled on something somebody else already knew. Yeah, that's entirely possible. But anyway, once we got to Boston, and then she went off the diet. And again, typical Carol, I could not convince her to go back on it. So December 2020, she kind of went anti-cancer diet, because she was taking medications, and it was very difficult for her to stay on that diet. Plus, we found this fantastic French restaurant in Boston, and she she had to go there. So
how can you be on a diet in Boston?
Yeah,
I don't know how anyone does it.
So she gets the therapy in December of 2020, and it works. It really starts shrinking the tumors quite rapidly. She feels better and better, and it's an amazing therapy. Unfortunately, it caused her to have inflamed liver, so she only got 1 dose of the viral therapy. But that put her on high doses of steroids, which we think helped the therapy, because the problem with viral therapy is eventually the body says, hey, there's a virus here, and it clears the virus out, even though that virus is actually helping you by getting rid of cancer cells.
Oh, right, yeah.
So,
it's a stranger danger.
The concept of a a good virus, that our immune systems don't really have that programmed into them. So she improved from that therapy from December through January and through February, but then she started feeling ill again, and we could tell that the therapy was no longer helping. But what had happened in the meantime is the FDA had approved a brand new therapy for her cancer, for the endometrial cancer, and it was a combination of Lenvima and Keytruda, and this one had a 40% benefit rate and a 10% cure rate. So those were that
sounds better.
Much better odds. So she went on that therapy, and again, had she done the chemotherapy the year before, we have been told that she would not have lived long enough to get to this.
Wow. To
this new therapy. And again, she showed improvement on that. The tumors actually were shrinking, and they continued to, this cancer itself continued to recede all the way up until she passed on December 1st. Unfortunately, what happened is eventually the cancer triggered what's called cachexia, which is a anorexia that cancer causes. And again, there's no treatment for it. That the doctors pretty much just, once that appears, they're kind of like, they give up. And so she just stopped eating and stopped drinking, and eventually she lost so much weight that she couldn't do things. And we called our sons. They came in from Colorado, and they've been here for 2 weeks. It's been amazing how much they've helped us. But they were there with her when she passed, and the passing was as peaceful as you could hope for. But finally, the fight was over, but it's just I wanted to put all this out here and share this with you folks, because as I said, she wouldn't let me share any of this journey with you while it was happening, and B, because it shows just what an amazing woman she was, that she was willing to go to such lengths to try to fight this cancer, and C, just a reminder to all of us that the cancer is a bad thing, and we can't just accept pollution that causes cancer. We can't just accept, like when the nuclear people tell us, don't worry about those, that doubling of cancer rates around nuke plants. Dude, look at all the energy you get. We can't look away from those things. We can't accept the pollution.
There's almost a kind of cult/exploitation of cancer victims as being heroes and fighters and all this stuff, and it's so great, in the same way as soldiers are. And it's I feel like it's kind of the same purpose, to sort of normalize cancer, people dying in war, all this stuff. And
right, exactly. And they are heroes. I mean, that's the thing, is that Carol fought a heroic battle.
Totally, yeah.
But she shouldn't have had to.
Right.
If her cancer was caused by something in the environment, if it was triggered by an environmental factor, she should not have had to suffer that way. And none of us should, and none of us need to. Like I said, we now have the knowledge and the technology. We could knock down all the smokestacks and close up all the discharge pipes, keep all those chemicals and all that pollution where it's being generated, and deal with it there, and never have put it out into a landfill. We can do that. I mean, we have science, but we're just told it's not economical. Well, screw that.
Yeah.
As a green, I say screw that. And
also, dying of cancer is a tad expensive.
Yeah,
in case nobody told you.
It is. Oh, yes, I know the treatments. Oh, yeah, that's a whole nother show. That's a whole nother issue. But that's it. I wanted to share with you Carol's cancer journey, and if you have comments on that, or if you want to share anything about someone who might have had a cancer journey, this is a call-in show, so the lines are open, and you can call it at any time at 877-909-1007, or you can send a text to 419-973-5493. 5841. And thank you very much for sticking with me while I told that story. I know it might be hard for some people to hear, but again, we can't afford to look away on these things. We have to deal with them. Okay, so now it's time to sort of get back on our normal track for this show. It's time to hear from our advertisers and sponsors. Yay! For Green Future is brought to you by the Wood County Park District. The Wood County Park District is a natural resources conservation agency. They protect natural spaces, maintain quality green spaces, they provide engaging programming, and they teach people to love and respect nature. They restore wildlife habitats and lead outdoor adventures. Wood County Parks protects natural spaces in Wood County for all to enjoy, from 8 a.m. to 30 minutes past sunset every day of the year. And there's a whole bunch of ways you can get a hold of them and find out what they're doing. One is you could call them at 419-353-1897. That's 419-353-1897. Then you can go to their website, which is wcparks.org. And there's lots of information there. Then one of the favorite ways I have is their app, the Wood County Park app. You just go to any app store and search for WC Parks. It's a free app. You download it to your phone and you can find out what's going on. And of course, they're on all the social media, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, etc., etc. That's the Wood County Park District. And For Green Future is also brought to you by our patrons. And our patrons are wonderful people who have gone to patreon.com. That's Patreon. And they searched for Green Future, and up popped our wonderful page. And they chose a monthly membership level that fits their budget, so they don't have to suffer to help us bring you guys news and information. And a little bit comes out of their checking account every month, comes over to us, and that's how we can afford to keep the program going. Because unfortunately, this is not free. We can't do it for nothing. But that's Patreon.com, and we want to thank all our patrons. And as I mentioned last week, we got a new patron at the $25 a month level, and that was really a nice boost there. And we want to thank Sean for joining us at that level. Okay, now, Rebecca, I believe you've been researching something kind of nice, kind of that a lot of people love. I love it.
I thought you'd relate to this segment.
I do. I actually go out and get this in the big gallon cans, So olive oil is our topic today. So take it away, Rebecca.
Right. I thought I would do it in honor of just having concluded Hanukkah.
Right. Because they were burning olive oil in the menorah?
Yeah. Yeah. I think some of the original versions were lamps and not candles. But yeah, anyone, Joe can relate. Sicilians can relate to this also.
Veramente.
There we go. Yeah, the scientific name is Olea europaea for olive trees. It's cultivated in the Mediterranean basin, plus Australia, New Zealand, North and South America, and South Africa. I think kind of any place that you can cultivate olive trees, people are doing it, because people really like olives and olive trees. They like the oil especially. It's in the family Oleaceae. Is that how you say that? C-A-E?
Oleaceae. Yeah, okay.
Oleaceae. Something like that. It's the same family with jasmine, true ash, forsythia, and lilacs, crazily enough. It's an evergreen tree, I guess, in the sense that, evergreen, what actually means anything that does not lose its leaves seasonally where it grows. So even if it doesn't grow in a cold place, if it doesn't lose leaves during the dry season, it can qualify as an evergreen. From what I've read.
I did not know that. Okay,
yeah.
Good.
Yeah, it's a Greek word originally, the word that we use for olive, and the word oil originally comes from olive oil. Olive oil was the first oil that people were really very interested in. So what we call petroleum, all that other stuff, it's from olive oil. The earliest form of the word was actually from Mycenaean Greek, which is way before the classical era again. It's just crazy long ago. Although originally, I think the first people to eat olives were Neanderthals. In fact, probably humans were eating olives before we were humans.
Oh, really?
Probably, Neanderthals, Denisovans, all of them probably went and... Denisovans, yes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Nothing to do with Denise. But,
oh, that's interesting, huh?
Yeah, so they're just a good thing to eat off a bush,
I wonder if we got it from them. I wonder if we saw... Neanderthals eating olives, and Homo sapiens are like, hey, I want some of that.
Maybe we can eat those too. Yeah, There we go. It's a short tree, 8 to 15 meters, except for the Piscotiana from the Campania region, which I think is southern Italy. Am I right?
I don't know.
Okay, I think I remember. Has white flowers, silvery green leaves. The fruit is usually green or purple. If you see black olives, probably they've been artificially aged with ferrous gluconate. So, given a choice, maybe go for the green variety, unless you have the natural ones that are purple. There's 6 subspecies of olives.
Mm-hmm.
So lots of different kinds, including like a wild one that has, I think, a smaller pit, weirdly enough. Why would you breed them for larger pits? I don't understand. Whatever.
Yeah, I don't know.
Whatever, olive growers. The fruit is rich in vitamin E, iron, copper, and calcium. And it can also have high sodium if it's packed in salt water, as some of them are. It's a drupe. So I had one source says it's related to other stone fruits like mangoes, cherries, peaches, almonds, pistachios. Alrighty then. So almonds and pistachios technically fruit then, I guess. A lot of stuff is fruit that you don't realize is fruit. Olives are extremely good for you. I hate them personally. I like them. I hate olives. They're so gross.
What? I'm not understanding.
Yeah.
How could you think that?
I've lost Joe completely.
It's a texture. I don't.
No, it's a taste. It's like too funky and dirt. It tastes sort of vaguely rotten to me.
What? Oh,
yeah.
All right. I have to just sit back and you've just blown my mind.
Just very upset.
I do not understand.
Right.
How you could think they're.
Which is unfortunate. There's sort of a tie-in here, and it's unfortunate for me. I don't like them because they protect against heart trouble, osteoporosis, and cancer. 70% of the fat is oleic acid in olives, which is anti-inflammatory too, which is good if you got arthritis and stuff. 90% of olives grown in the Mediterranean basin are used to make olive oil. So that's really, I think, a big thing with olives. Some black and white. Some of them blacken with naturally when ripe. Others stay green. So a green olive is ripe. It's always ripe. Yeah, so black olives has more iron, which helps red blood cells transport oxygen, and copper is good for the heart. So those are some reasons why they're good for stuff. They're also used in cosmetics, pharmaceuticals, soaps, etc. Oh, for fuel. They're a core food plant in the Mediterranean. They're in the big 3 with wheat and grapes. It turns out they've been used for 8 million years. I think the earliest evidence for olive oil is about 3,000 years ago.
3,000. Okay.
2,500 years ago, they found their first olive oil amphora with traces of olive oil. In Spain produces almost half of the global consumption of olive oil, so that's where most of it comes from, I guess. Wild olives originated in Asia Minor. Is that basically Turkey? I think it's basically Turkey.
Yep.
Somewhere. Okay. I was been a little confused about that. Why you got to have this? What is Asia Minor? It doesn't make sense. The ancient Spartans oiled themselves, and other Greeks oiled themselves up with olive oil to do gymnastics. So, first Olympics, think naked dudes with oil.
Covered in olive oil. Well,
think about whether I want to think about that or not.
One of the few pleasures, I guess, the Spartans allowed themselves.
Right. So, it sounds very racy. They were domesticated in Persia or Mesopotamia, or some experts think Europe originally. So, but there are basic theories. And for my one last zinger fact, here we go. They were used as a form of birth control mixed with cedar oil, lead, and frankincense applied to the cervix. We're not recommending this.
Yeah, again, this is not
especially with the lead. Do not go out and do this. I'm going to say with the lead, it's a bad idea. And the lead may be what actually did the trick, because lead causes birth defects. So
lead messes up lots and lots of biological processes. So
that could have been it.
I didn't know that it was 8 million years ago we started eating olives.
It's only 8,000.
Oh, 8,000.
Sorry,
Oh.
I misspoke.
I was going to say that was pre, Homo sapiens, but
right.
But I have always thought that we have they help us in so many ways. They match our biological needs on so many levels. I've kind of always thought we sort of co-evolved with olives.
Probably, yeah.
That the modern human and the modern olive are like because some olive trees are literally thousands of years old, and so literally dozens of generations of humans have been grown up eating olives from those trees. And
they help us, we help them.
Yeah, so I'm thinking...
And they look all gnarled, too, so they look old even when they're not.
Yeah, they are. Yeah. So I'm still trying to wrap my head around not liking olives.
I know. I don't like mushrooms either. I'm a big... And fish. I don't like fish. Sorry.
We've got to move on. Time to move on,
just get
Rebecca.
too upset. We have to stop talking about this.
Okay. All right. So now we go on to the section of the show where we talk about environmental news, ecological news. But again, anyone can join us anytime, 877-909-1007, or send us a text at 419-973-5841. Love to hear from you. The big environmental news, the big ecological news is actually the top headline on all the mainstream news shows today, and that's the Quad State tornado.
Oh, yeah. That was not good.
No, it was not good. Yesterday was my wife's memorial service, and if anyone wants to watch that, it's on the All Saints Catholic Church in Rossford's YouTube and Facebook feeds. They got recorded as a live stream. And I do want to mention that over 300 people have already watched that live stream, which is sort of a testament to how well loved Carol was. But when we went to the funeral mass, when we were on our way, it was 62 degrees, according to my cell phone. And then when during the mass, that huge wind came, which affected so many people around here, and some of the houses in Bowling Green, I was walking Ursula this morning, that's our dog, but some of the houses actually have siding torn off of them from that wind yesterday. When we came out of the church after the service and after the wonderful meal that we had there, it was down to 37. So we went from 62 to 37 in the course of a couple hours.
Didn't it sometime around early twilight, just after it got dark, it got back up to almost didn't need a coat. And then it took another sudden dive. The weather was just exceptionally crazy yesterday.
Right. And we have crazier weather on the way because all the Weather Service predictions are we're now going to get hit with a heat wave.
You can only handle so much with layering.
Yeah. Yeah, but they're saying in the next couple weeks, we will definitely not be having white Christmases. And most of the U.S. we're talking 60s, maybe even 70s.
Oh my God!
But again, so all of you climate deniers,
the climate is very broken.
Global warming deniers.
We broke the Earth.
I have to point out that it's not supposed to be like this in December. You're not supposed to be getting 60, 70 degree weather.
And some numbnuts is gonna pop up with, but it was like this during the 80s. No, it wasn't.
No, it's never been
like this
within human memory. So anyway, this tornado, which was spawned by this huge change in temperature, this huge drop in temperature and change in pressure, they've called it the Quad State tornado. It went across in 4 hours. It was on the ground for 4 hours.
Oh, my God.
And it went across Arkansas, Missouri, Tennessee, and Kentucky. And it wiped out some of the communities, like in Arkansas and Mayfield, Kentucky, were two of the
my mother had a job in Mayfield. I should check out Murray. When we lived in Murray, my mom worked at the Mayfield Public Library for a while as a fill-in.
Well, hopefully the tornado went around the library. But,
I'm hoping. It was a nice little library.
Yeah, but it destroyed a lot of buildings and probably it looks like indications are, even though the official death count I heard coming in is somewhere in the 30s right now, but the predictions are it's going to be well over 100 people killed by this tornado. And this, again, global warming, folks. I mean, again, we're in a positive feedback loop. We keep putting carbon in the air, and we're not going to make it. And I was struck, in the last weeks of my wife's illness there, I was struck by the fact that she knew intellectually that she had to take in more calories or she would die. I mean, we told her, a body needs 1,200 calories a day to avoid going into what's called starvation mode. But once you're in starvation mode, you still need at least 600 calories a day or you will die. I mean, it's non-negotiable. It's not something you can't work your way through. You can't exercise through it. You can't use force of will to get past that. You need at least 600 calories a day when you're in starvation mode, or you will pass away. And she knew this, but one of the ways cachexia works is that you simply cannot convince the person who has it to eat more. I mean, she was down to 100 or 200 calories a day, and that's when I called my sons in from Colorado, and they came in and they stayed with us, and they were both trying to convince her to eat more. And she did bump up to from 100 to 200 calories a day. She went up to 200 to 400 calories a day, which is still not enough to live. I mean, and she was still, but over and over again, I was struck by the similarity to the way our whole society is reacting to the whole carbon dioxide crisis. I mean, we're telling you, the scientists are telling you, everyone is saying, look, we need to stop putting CO2 in the air. We've got to get below this level in the atmosphere, and we have to prevent temperature increases of more than 1.5 degrees Fahrenheit, or we're not going to make it as a society, or everything's going to collapse. We are going to crash. But people are still buying cars that run on gasoline. People are still building new houses and using natural gas to heat them instead of heat pumps. I mean, I kept feeling it was like the same disease, that
Joe was a fixer, so the situation was hard on him.
It was. I couldn't convince Carol to eat more. And
did she really not understand that, though, or did she just have trouble physically forcing herself?
She understood.
Right.
She understood intellectually.
Right.
But some part of her still felt that somehow she could get past that,
Right, because she felt okay. Yeah.
She felt, good. I mean, she did not suffer the pain that a lot of cancer patients suffer, and we were grateful for that. But and even the night before she passed, we were sitting up. We watched a movie. We watched Howl's Moving Castle, which is one of our favorite animes.
That's good. It's fun.
She was sitting there organizing our DVDs, and she actually had me buy a plane ticket to go visit her brother in California the night before she passed. So
oh my gosh.
Even though we were telling her and showing her, and she knew it intellectually, she could not bring herself to eat more. And it kind of felt the same as the way it feels when we're telling everyone, you've got to get mass transit in here, you've got to stop buying gasoline, and or society's going to collapse. And this is how it's going to go. Through things like this quad state tornado, I mean, there'll just be bigger and bigger weather events that hurt more and more people and destroy more and more area, and that'll just keep accelerating up to the point where we don't have the resources or the ability to recover from it. I mean, that's I can't make it any clearer. And the frustration with that felt the same as the frustration with not being able to convince my wife to eat enough to live. So,
well, this is the thing, for me, I don't have kids. I'm not going to have kids. So I sort of took some comfort for the fact that my species was going to continue on after me, and it's a little upsetting that it might not. And after that, I was like, okay, well, maybe life on Earth after me, please, would be nice.
Yeah, that's the fallback. So, okay. All right. Well, but enough about that right now. We got some more environmental news to talk about.
All right.
Here. One is we have our HB6 update. The story that will not die. I mean, HB6 might continue long
after humans are gone. Yeah, cockroaches will be arguing about it. Yeah.
Right.
And see them running their little nuke. But no, we need more.
Right. But what has happened with HB6 is large parts of it have been repealed. But the one part of it that hasn't been repealed is the direct ratepayer subsidies to the coal plants, one in Indiana and one in southern Ohio, and which was, just so awful, and the process by which those were put in there. The bill originally was supposed to be a anti-global warming and anti-CO2 bill, and that's why that was the excuse they used to subsidize the nuke plants. But what happened at the public hearing, and I'll never forget this, the very first public hearing on HB6, I was the second speaker at that. The first speaker was a representative of American Electric Power, and if you read he went on, we were supposed to have 5 minutes, he went on for 25 minutes. But what he said in so many words was, American Electric Power doesn't support this yet because we haven't gotten any, we haven't been given any thing out of it yet. But let's get together and we'll make some decisions and we'll change some things. We look forward to working with the legislators to improve the bill, which means this was stuck in it, the direct subsidies for coal plants, and those have remained. So what was theoretically an anti-global warming bill became a pro-global warming bill because Ohioans are subsidizing putting CO2 in the air to the tune of millions of tons by these plants.
As opposed to paying people's rent so they don't become homeless and die of COVID outdoors.
Yes. And so what happened this past week, our friends at Ohio Citizen Action, we're good friends with Rachel Bells there. She's been a frequent guest on the show, and the Sierra Club and and several other organizations got together and did a protest down in Columbus. And what was nice about this, what was cute about this protest was what they did was they filled stockings with coal, Christmas stockings, and delivered them to the legislatures that are holding up the repeal of...
Too bad they couldn't get Krampus to come and take them away and beat them with sticks, or take them to Spain. He takes people to Spain and beats them with sticks. I don't know, something. I'm a little confused about my Krampus lore.
Well, Krampus, Christmas isn't here yet. Krampus might show up. It's.
I guess maybe you're fine. You just get beaten with sticks. That's all. I don't know. And you live in Spain.
I understand it that he stuffed bad little children into sacks and took them away.
Right.
So we're not advocating
Spain,
that.
I think.
We're not advocating that.
No. Keep the bad little children.
Yeah, but if
they might
Krampus
improve.
were to show up,
unless they show signs of growing up to be a nuclear energy lobbyist.
Yeah. Okay. So
then let Krampus take them to Spain.
So it was a good protest. A lot of fine speakers. I had hoped to attend. I wasn't able to attend, but good on the folks at Ohio Citizen Action and Sierra Club for keeping the pressure on this, because it was one of the most blatant examples I've ever seen of a corporation basically just saying to legislators, we want a cut here. and 2 weeks later, it appeared in the legislation, and I'll never forget that the chair of the subcommittee where we were speaking, basically when this AEP representative started talking about working with them, it was like he started drooling. It was like, oh, there's money coming. And that's what happens is these corporations are, through campaign contributions, are really taking over the legislative process. And that's what our next story is about. And this is not you might think this isn't an environmental story, but as we saw with HB6, the reason we're having all these environmental problems is essentially the political decisions that are being made.
And by politics, we mean money.
And so what's happening is there's something called the Freedom to Vote Act, which for the most part is a good law. I mean, it's got things like outlawing gerrymandering, which is this horrible thing we have here in Ohio. It does a lot of really good things. It ensures early voting. It says there has to be at least 2 weekends before an election has to, you have to have open for voting, and a lot of good things in there. But like so many laws these days, there's also something in there that's really, really bad, and that is they're right now we have what's called the presidential public matching funds, which when people do their tax returns, they can choose to donate $1 or $2, and it goes into a fund for people that are running for president, and they have to raise a certain amount themselves, and they have to demonstrate so much support from so many states. But you can then apply for public financing, and so you don't have to go to corporations and ask them for money for these tens, hundreds of millions, billions of dollar campaigns that people are waging. And the theory is that if you can get the corporate money out, you will get legislators that pay more attention to people and less attention to corporations, and make better laws. That's the theory behind public financing. And this applies to social issues as well as environmental issues. So unfortunately, what the Freedom to Vote Act does is it takes the money that has been already put into the presidential matching fund and puts it into something called a House matching fund. And basically, it's going to be used to finance House member campaigns. But the only members of the House that are going to be able to access this are Democrats and Republicans.
Oh, of course.
And it's like, practically
it's only
speaking,
for people who are already incumbents. It's only for incumbents.
No, it's not just for incumbents.
Oh, but only for Democrats and Republicans.
But the way it's set up, third parties, independent people, it's going to be almost impossible for them to get at it.
Right.
And there's support for this idea, because in places like Norway, most of the election campaign spending is from the public funds. There are private contributions, but most of what people spend in the Scandinavian countries are from public funding, and they end up with they have some of the best laws in the world. They have some of the happiest citizens in the world, and the happiness surveys. But you can oppose that to places like Brazil, where 95 to 98% of the campaign funds for presidential elections comes from corporations, comes from mining and logging companies. And, not surprisingly, they are destroying their environment with bad mining laws and bad.
And did they actually, have some kind of government program where you have someone come and cough on you when they have COVID or something? It's something like almost that bad.
It was, they've pretty much denied COVID, and they've got a lot of problems down in Brazil. I think it's mandatory.
You have to tongue kiss people with COVID or something in Brazil. It's really bad.
Right. So, I make no secret of the fact I'm a Green, and all over the world, Green parties, once we can get into politics and into the picture, we push everybody towards more sustainability, towards a more livable world all over the planet. But here, we're being knocked out of it, because what this is in combination with is requirements that third parties get a percentage of the presidential vote in order to exist. And so if you both say you have to get at least 3% of the presidential vote, which is what they say in Ohio, but you cannot access any of these public matching funds to help with your campaign, that would force us to go to corporations too, which we refuse to do, because that would turn us into the other parties. And so that's a really bad part of the voting, the Freedom to Vote Act. And one other part of it that I have real problems with is they're also going to allow candidates to use some of the money to meet personal expenses.
Okay.
Things like health insurance premiums and rent. And I could speak because I have been one of the candidates. They say,
is there a big problem with homeless guys running for office, Joe?
Well, there isn't, but
I think there was.
Well, what could happen? What will happen?
They need help with their rent.
Yeah. Well, what will happen here is if they do this, if people can literally just take their campaign funds and use it on themselves, you will see a huge flood of people who that's all they're doing. They're running in order to get the money to pay their rent, and they don't. It's. This is not good. This is a bad thing for democracy. They say it's good because it'll allow more people to run, but that part must be stripped out because once you open that door, that's a very dark hole you're going to fall in. That's a door. That's one of those doors like in Howl's Moving Castle. They had at one scene there was this black door. You open it up and it's nothing but a void.
Let's close that right away.
Yeah, you just close that door. Don't go into that void. So. All right. Well, wow. So somehow we have managed to fill this hour. I mean... you didn't even talk about Mommy yet. Oh, right. The last live show we did in here, Rebecca brought to my attention Maumee River. Turns out Maumee... the municipality has for many years, apparently it's like 20 years, been dumping raw sewage into the Maumee River. And where it flows directly down to Toledo. Right. Passing a couple of other municipalities on the way. And it's about 150 million gallons of sewage over the past 20 years. That can't be good for the slime levels in the lake. No. Well, I mean, excessive nutrients. Right. Yeah. It really messes things up. The Ohio EPA has fined Maumee $30,000 for doing that, but they can apply it to their remediation steps. Which is like, okay. Which they have to do anyway. So it's like they didn't actually fine them. But it was a case of, again, stormwater overflow. So when it gets a lot of rain, you're using the same pipes to carry your sewage and your runoff. And when there's too much rain, a lot of that just spills out and goes off into the river. And so they say they're fixing it. They say they've started to change their infrastructure so that this won't happen again in the future. But they got away with it for 20 years, and this is the kind of thing we cannot accept. And it should have been caught 20 years ago. The Ohio EPA should have been caught, but it depended on self-reporting. And the whole concept of self-reporting. So wait, is that like if the burglars had to call 911 themselves in order for the police to come? Okay. Exactly. That's what it is. It's telling the burglars. It's leaving a little note for the burglars. Please call 911. Please call 911. My house is being burgled. There we go. Yeah. So, and that concept has been applied to so many industries by so many regulatory agencies as if it were a good thing, but trust me, folks, it's not. All right, well, that's it for this. Almost that's it for this show. We got like a minute left. I want to thank you all for listening, and I want to thank Carol for 41 years of relationship, 37 years of marriage. And this whole time, the last 2 years when he's been coming to you and doing these elaborate shows, Joe's dealing with the stuff all by himself. Well, I had some help from our sons sometimes, but it really has been a challenge but getting this show out every week was the one piece of normalcy we've had in this past 2 years. And so it has been difficult because she did require lots and lots of time, and I had to make time to do the show. I had to take it away from helping Carol, but every time for the last year when we had to when we leave, he had to check and call and make sure she was okay before we could even go through a drive-through. Yeah. So, so I've never lived alone before, and we have this huge, beautiful house down in Bowling Green. So I don't know what the next year is going to be like, but she wanted me to keep doing this show. She insisted, because there were times when I was like, that sounds like Carol. Maybe I should stop. And she was like, no, you keep doing that. So we will be back next week because, Carol told me to do it. And pretty much when she told me to do something, I did it. So we'll be back next week, folks. Thanks so much for listening. This is Joe DeMare. And Rebecca Wood. And we are signing off. All we need